Pocono Raceway provided one of the most interesting yet controversial duels that NASCAR could have possibly imagined. Hamlin versus Larson, and for the second time this season, things got a bit chippy between these two. Hamlin's actions have fueled up Larson's equal reaction, and the HMS driver did not hold back on words when it comes to bashing Hamlin for his actions. Furthermore, he provided a chilling update as to how he will approach these duels in the future, something that may prompt some more action from NASCAR. Denny Hamlin emerged as the winner at the Pocono Raceway, and while it was mostly at the expense of Kyle Larson, the former Cup Series champion, a win is a win, and I doubt that Denny will have to say something against it. But on the other hand, you have Larson, who was on the damage side and who saw himself being plunged down the line to 21st place, something that gave him a legitimate punch in the playoff picture, and something with which he cannot come to peace. During the battle, the number 5 and number 11 cars were fighting very closely up until one turn when Hamlin decided to launch an attack and take over the lead from Larson. However, the move itself was far from a clean one, and the two drivers got involved in a very heated battle, which then again transformed into a war of words once the dust on the track settled and the adrenaline got to their heads when they saw each other's faces. Hamlin's inside dive bomb saw him hit Larson just enough so that he would hit the barriers and lose momentum, and that move saw the HMS driver lose any chance of finishing in the top 10. Furthermore, it's painful that this was just 7 laps before the end of the race, and for you to go from 1st to 21st on the track just because your rival doesn't know how to race you speaks volumes about where Larson is with this entire situation in his head. Before we get into Larson's bashing and Hamlin's defensive response, let's see what the general NASCAR opinion is on this incident, and quite frankly, I cannot defend Denny on this one, and neither can NASCAR. The majority of NASCAR fans and experts believe that Denny's move was just one step too far, pointing him out as the aggressor who caused Kyle Larson to hit the outside wall at Pocono while racing for the win. But even in such tricky and loose situations where one could say stuff they don't mean, Kyle Larson's crew chief preferred to leave things to both of the drivers and didn't want to get involved with his personal opinion, as it would have obviously been full of bias. When talking about this matter, Cliff Daniels went on to elaborate. It'll be between Kyle and Denny to decide. They are right in saying that they've been friends for many years, and their friendship off track certainly means something. On track, because of that friendship, you gotta learn how to race each other with respect. If that is not the case, then it's on those two to figure it out. Friends outside of the track but fierce rivals on it is very common in the NASCAR world, but up to a certain point, and it seems like that certain point has arrived for both of these drivers in question. As it all stands, these two cannot get their hands off each other once they are fighting on the track, because this is not the first time that they have made contact on the track while fighting for the win. The Kansas Motor Speedway has provided us with the same scenario, and many of the fans felt like this was all a deja vu moment for the NASCAR world. But even though Hamlin is known as one of the foul mouths in the sport, as his actions have gone to the extent of him publicly admitting to deliberately crash with other drivers, such as Chastain, this time he was certain that there wasn't any contact between him and Larson at Pocono, and the JGR driver went on to elaborate. I still contest we did not touch. I know it looks like it, but there's not a ding on the car, nowhere on the right side. If it was contact, I certainly didn't feel it. Be that as it may, Larson is the driver who got away with the thick end of things, and this time it's up to Hamlin to try and apologize or even admit his own actions. Losing 19 positions in just a couple of turns is not something that any NASCAR driver wants to experience out there, let alone a proven champion who is in the lead of the race. And as you have already anticipated up until this point, Larson's reaction is not something that you can safely watch or listen to, as you know that he's not the type of driver to tolerate these types of driver mistakes. After all, he has been chill and composed when it comes to accidents that weren't his fault, such as the one last year in Las Vegas with Bubba Wallace, where he was deliberately crashed from behind, just because he completed a successful pass on an account of a little bit of a pinch of the wall to number 45. Still, the outcome from Pocono is vastly different, and when talking about this matter, Larson did not hold his words against his friend, as he went on to say, "Yeah, we're friends. Yes, this makes things shitty and awkward. Whatever, he's always right. All the buddies know Denny is always right. I'm sure he was in the right there as well. It is what it is. I'm not going to let it tarnish a friendship on the track, but I am pissed, and I feel like I should be pissed." He gave me a real push down the front stretch, and I was nervous of the move that happened because he made it work on Chastain last year, and he dirtied him up. I deserved to be raced with respect, at least through turn 1, but he knew that this was going to be his only opportunity to beat me with how bad dirty it was. It's definitely one of the lowlights from Danny, and even drivers like Martin Truex Jr. do not feel like the JGR driver was in the right here. But can NASCAR intervene in such situations? If Larson wants to prompt action here, it would most likely be something very similar to what happened between him and Bubba Wallace last year in Las Vegas, and the sport would classify it as a racing incident. Now the reality remains as it is. The race is done and dusted, and if Hamlin's statements are true, that there is literally no dent on the car from the so-called crash, then I guess there is nothing Larson could do to prove that Hamlin is the one that needs to be trashed for his actions. But according to Truex Jr., Denny's actions were just an extra little bit, and the fact that he pushed the number 5 car too deep in the corner and ran him in the fence off of turn 2 is not something that can be classified as clean racing. Martin had the best view of the show because he was right behind these two drivers, and even though he is Denny's teammate, he feels like the action was just a little bit too dirty. But still, Martin's honest opinion is that you need some kind of dirty moves to a certain extent to become the race winner, and that is the main reason as to why Denny won and his teammate didn't, according to Truex Jr. himself. Nevertheless, Larson's anger did not stop there, and he sent a fierce warning that he would change the racing strategy whenever he faced a similar situation in the foreseeable future. When talking about this matter, the HMS driver said, "I got used up. It's just unfortunate. I feel like we've had a handful of run-ins. I've never had to reach out to apologize. He's always been the one that's reached out to me and been like, hey man, I'm sorry. I messed up there a little bit. I should have at least been in the top 2. I finished 21st. In my eyes, hey, I could have 10 more playoff points. 2 more wins right now, if not for Hamlin. You gotta start racing people a certain way to get their respect back. Be that as it may, Larson's future with Hamlin is not something that guarantees beers and dinners, because based on what happened in Pocono and the fact that Hamlin did not apologize for his actions, Larson's perception of the entire relationship between these two might change a bit. Furthermore, this is definitely not the last outlet in which we'll see both of the drivers go head-to-head with each other, and with Larson's changed view as to what works and what doesn't when you're racing Denny Hamlin, I'm sure that we'll see a lot more dirty racing between these two. Because when a Cup Series champion threatens to change the narrative, you're most likely going to receive the outcome of his promises. What do you think about this entire situation? Do you think Hamlin was in the right for pushing Larson into the wall? Or do you think that the HMS driver exaggerated a little bit for the lost momentum? Let us know in the comments below.